Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Glad to see so many people here today. I'd like to apologize a little bit for the extra noise. The Gay Buddhist Friends of the Western Buddhist Order, from whom we rent this space, are having a Children's Day for their Sangha, so that's what all the rumbling and commotion upstairs was about. Usually it's quite that noise. So we have a speaker. Before we start, we usually go around the room and introduce ourselves by name, and sometimes we try and add a little thought to that just so it doesn't run through as a very quick sort of droning list. So let's try that today. We had a very rainy day yesterday, and today the sun has come back. So my name is Peter, and the winter life for me is beautiful and melancholy.
Douglas, I enjoyed the rain, stayed in all day yesterday.
My name's Robert. I enjoy the rain.
Rich, I don't know.
Max.
I'm Carl.
Kaleo, love the smells.
I'm Michael, happy to be here.
I'm Justin, and I like how clean it smells after the rain.
I'm Jay, and I don't know what to say about the rain.
I'm Tom, and yesterday morning I planted wildflowers on one of the nearby road medians, so I was very happy to get the rain in the afternoon.
I'm Gary, and I didn't have to water my garden after all.
Yeah. I'm Mylan, that's what I like too. I have to water plants.
I'm Marvin.
I'm Andre, I've got my plants for having.
My name is Peter.
I'm Mark, and I'm glad the sun is back.
My name is Howard, and I welcome the sounds of children.
I'm Bruce.
I'm Will. I'm a sun man.
Daniel, and I want more rain.
I'm Lee.
David. Steve forgot to put buckets under the leaf in the garage.
David.
Daniel, happy to be here. I'm Marty, spent some time looking for the escaped rabbits in the mud.
I'm George. I like the rain, especially when I'm out in it.
I'm Jim. I missed the opera last time because of the rain.
I'm Dave, it's just refreshing. I'm Tom.
I'm Gordon, and I like the sun after the rain.
I'm Peter. I don't care whether it rains or sun shines. I don't like the short days.
I'm Steve, and I had a chance to read and correct 70 10-year-old papers by 10-year-olds about the red pony and kings. It was quite cool.
Anthony, Paul, and it's a joy to be with James Baraz again.
I'm Robert.
Mark.
Paul, it's good to be here.
Javier.
Richard, I'm grateful for such a sparkling day.
I'm Jack.
I'm Brian, and today is my birthday, and it's a gorgeous day out.
Happy birthday.
Dan.
I'm Norman. Okay. Do you want to say anything? Or?
I'm James.
So our speaker today is James Baraz, and he is a rather long-term, I guess, teacher with Spirit Rock. How many years have you been involved with them?
Since before it was Spirit Rock.
Since before it was Spirit Rock. One of the originators. And he has a Sangha in the East Bay. Does a lot of work with groups for children, too? Or
advisor to the family program.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say about your practice before we begin?
No, that's all right.
Please welcome our speaker, James Baraz.
Hi.
Hello.
It's really nice to be here and see this thriving community.
It's wonderful. And gosh, Paul Shepard, right? Great to see you. I was invited by Dean Bellerby, who's a member of this community, who I think out of a course that I teach that he's taken wanted to have me come and speak. So I'm happy to be here, and I want to talk about this subject that has been a focus of mine for the last few years, and actually this year I'm writing a book, which is for me a big deal. This is my first book. Every of my friends have written a book or 3 or 4, but this is my turn in writing on this topic. The essence of the topic is the Buddha Dharma as a path of happiness, although it's not solely geared to Dharma practitioners. It's for the mainstream, and the course that I teach, and the name of the book is Awakening Joy. I'll say a little bit about my own journey with the Buddhist path as far as happiness goes, and then share with you a little bit about what I've been exploring and experimenting with people these last few years. I am so deeply indebted and grateful to the Buddha and the Dharma, and certainly the Sangha, for showing me possibilities of real happiness. And at times I have gotten to be a very serious practitioner. If you consider yourself a serious practitioner, it's a double-edged, I don't know if sword is the right word, but there's a blessing and a curse to it. If you are very dedicated and sincere in your practice, and your heart is really in it, and you're inspired, that's fantastic. Sometimes we can get very serious, as Ajahn Sumedho, one of my teachers and inspiration, says. He got dead serious in his practice. And there can be so much of an emphasis on the First Noble Truth, on suffering. And even when the Buddha was asked what he taught, he said, I teach about suffering and the end of suffering. Well, there's not much room, or you don't hear too much about happiness. This is about suffering and coming to the end of suffering. And yet the Buddha was called the happy one. And that's what the end of suffering is, the highest happiness. And he did say, if you aim for the highest happiness, all the other levels of happiness become available to you. The Dalai Lama starts out his book, The Art of Happiness, the first line, it's a great opening line to a book. The purpose of life is to be happy. I'll read that one. But we can, as I say, get a little bit sidetracked in the seriousness of practice, and this is not just in the solemnity, I should say, of practice, and this is not just some kind of quirk that if that is so for you, you might wonder, am I the only one? There are some reasons why this can be so, why there can be a misunderstanding of the teachings. And I, for one, after having a number of years very inspired, and my heart and my whole being on fire for waking up, got into a dark period for some time as I misunderstood some aspects of the teachings. And I'll share with you a couple where you can see how this misunderstanding can come. This is one principle of inspiring one to practice is what's called samvega. How many people are familiar with samvega? You know the term? Samvega, this is the definition of samvega. The oppressive sense of shock, dismay, and alienation that comes with realizing the futility and meaninglessness of life as it is normally lived. A chastening sense of one's own complacency and foolishness in having let oneself live so blindly, and an anxious sense of urgency in trying to find a way out of the meaningless cycle. How does that grab you? Now, this is actually, when understood deeply, a very important concept, because we have to be motivated in some way to get off our complacency and thinking, oh, well, maybe this will make me happy, maybe this will make me happy. But it's easy to understand that as seeing life is a drag and let's get out of here as quickly as we can. The operative term in that definition, realizing the futility and meaninglessness of life as it's normally lived. But you can kind of skip over that part and just say, yeah, life is meaningless and futile, and I want to get out. I sat with a great Burmese master who every talk, on a 3-month talk, he would say, may you speedily attain Nibbana and get off the wheel of samsara. And he was saying it from a very loving and compassionate place, but I kept on hearing, I've got to get out of this. We've got to get out of this place, as Eric Burden used to say. And then there's another concept where we can easily get into the sense of getting out, and life is a drag. The term nibbida, Nibbida. Anybody familiar with that one? Well, this term nibbida here, I'll read to you in the one translation. Seeing things directly as they are, and seeing what is impermanent as impermanent with right view. Therefore, one should abide in utter disgust for the aggregates. The aggregates being this mind-body process. In another translation, when a practitioner is practicing in accordance with the Dharma, he should dwell engrossed in revulsion toward the aggregates. You hear that and say, oh, no wonder there's this sense of life is not fun, and it's not okay to feel good about life. Actually, those are incomplete translations of the word nibbida, because what the word nibbida means actually is disenchantment. And when you are disenchanted, it's like you're breaking the spell of enchantment, of being enthralled by this or by that, or by this mind-body process or other mind-body processes out there. Disenchantment, breaking the spell of that enthralling, is very different than utter disgust and revulsion. You're with me? But I, in my own confusion, heard those terms or got that sense that we should have utter revulsion for mind-body process, and that everything is meaningless. And I went through this dark period for a while because I'm basically I love to celebrate life. I'm a very passionate person. I'm an intense person. Fortunately, I got intense about something that cooled me out a bit, and that's the meditation. But for quite a while, I went through this inner conflict about letting my devotional, my bhakti nature come out. And I thought that I wasn't being a good Buddhist if I was enjoying my life. This went on for a while, and actually what really woke me up from that trance was being around a an Advaita teacher. Maybe some of you heard of a man named Punjaji or Papaji. And I went to India, this is in 1990, and he talks about emptiness, he's passed away, he's talked about emptiness all the time. Empty, oh, it's all empty, all empty. But he had this incredible love and brightness and delight and joy. And I'd ask him lots of questions. Give me all your questions, all your questions. And at the very time that at last, near the end of my visit there, I said, I have one more question, Punjaji. Give me your question. I said, when Buddhists talk about emptiness, it seems so serious, so solemn and heavy. Yes, we have to realize emptiness. When you talk about emptiness, you're laughing, you've got an aura of love, and there's this tremendous energy that comes out from you. Why is your emptiness so much more fun than the ones that I'm used to hearing and talking about? And he said, in essence, if you have touched something very profound in the stillness of the meditation, it can easily be equated that stillness is where the depth of awakening is, and that the emptiness is about that stillness. And anything other than that stillness, the world of vitality and appearances, can seem antithetical. And so you can get lost in this idea of the profundity being equated with stillness, which is easy to make it serious and solemn. He says, my emptiness rejects nothing, my emptiness. There's love, and there's confusion, and there's joy, and there's intensity, and there's nothing is rejected from my emptiness. And then he laughed, ha ha ha. I said, that's it. I've been missing that. Because that's exactly what in my heart I think of as the totality of life, that there's nothing excluded. And it actually it brought me back to my original joy of the Dharma. And I was looking at it through a pretty narrow lens of particular Burmese Theravadan slant through one particular approach. And I started to look back and say, well, wait a second, what did the Buddha really teach? Because if he got the whole truth, let's see, this must be something more than just getting out of this miserable existence. And I started to look at his teachings and see that there are many aspects of the Buddha's teachings that point to joy and happiness. Joy is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, along with loving kindness and compassion and equanimity. That it's a factor in awakening. In one list, he talks about suffering being a causative factor for faith. Faith is a causative factor for gladness. Gladness is a causative factor for joy, is a causative factor for happiness, contentment, equanimity, all the way up to full awakening. There's many, many different flavors, from piti, rapture, and pamoja, delight, and sukha, happiness. And I started to see, well, wait a second. Okay, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, suffering is not enough. You can't just stop there. Okay, I understand suffering and the end of suffering. You've got to see, well, what opens my heart, makes me connect with life, makes me want to be participating in life. Because if it's only about getting out of suffering, it's a very insular and limited focus. So I started to look at these teachings and reformulate them. And there's some incredibly powerful teachings that I've been using for these last few years in this course that I teach. First, there are 3 principles that are the essence of my exploration. First principle has to do with right effort. You might think, oh, that doesn't sound very, very joyful or fun. But the actual teaching of right effort, there are 4 right efforts in the classical teachings. 2 have to do with unwholesome states, guarding against unwholesome states that haven't arisen, and overcoming unwholesome states that have arisen. Okay, very useful, good stuff, and we're probably very familiar with those. And then the 2 other aspects of right effort are about wholesome states. Developing wholesome states that have not yet arisen, like loving kindness or compassion or equanimity, etc. And the 4th is maintaining and increasing wholesome states when they have arisen. This is right effort. When you're feeling in the middle of a wholesome state, it's skillful to maintain and increase that feeling of well-being. And he gives in one discourse, which I just happen to, it's a very little-known discourse. I just happened to open up one blessed day in my Majjhima Nikaya, which is this huge compendium of discourses, one collection of discourses. In this one sutta, he says, in the middle of an act, in the middle of a wholesome state, tune into it. And the words are, he uses an example of being generous. He says, in the middle of being generous, it's useful to say to yourself, it's skillful to say to yourself, I'm being generous right now. And then the words are, thinking I am generous, one gladdens the heart, one delights in the meaning, one gains inspiration in the meaning and in the Dhamma. Thinking I'm being generous. Now, he's not saying, hey, check it out. Look, aren't I a generous guy? All you're doing then is reifying a sense of self. But what he is saying is, feel how good it feels for that impulse of generosity to move through you. And as you tune into it, you actually experience a kind of gladness. And then the line in this discourse is, that gladness connected with what is wholesome, I call an equipment of mind for overcoming ill will and hostility. I'll say it again. You feel, in the wholesome state, you feel this gladness, and he says that gladness that arises, that gladness connected with the wholesome, I call an equipment of mind to overcome ill will and hostility. It's in your toolkit to overcome anger and any kind of negativity, to feel that gladness. He says this is a really good thing. I thought, oh, far out. So it's okay not only to feel good, it's skillful to feel good. If you know if that feeling good is connected with really wholesome things. Then there's a 3rd principle, so that's the 2nd one. First is in maintaining and increasing wholesome states. 2nd is experiencing the gladness that arises with them. And then the 3rd principle in another discourse, very straightforward and very, I think, profound. He says, whatever the practitioner frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. Can you argue with that? Whatever you frequently think and ponder upon will become the inclination of your mind. If you practice seeing how life is a drag and everybody around you disappoints you, you'll get ample confirmation. If you practice seeing that there's a lot of goodness in life, or there's beauty around and goodness in people, or that it feels good to be generous or kind, that becomes the inclination of your mind. And now, in the last decade or so, current brain research is corroborating, this is not news, but it's very clearly substantiated. You thicken measurably these synaptic connections and neural pathways that lead to a great sense of well-being as you deepen your meditation practice and as you practice certain states of well-being. You kind of suppress the amygdala, which gets activated in fear very easily and gets and leads us to agitation and unskillfulness and confusion. So, I said I was looking at this for a while and getting really, really intrigued by it. And along the way, as I was exploring this, my wife gave me a book. This is in 1999 for my birthday. And it's a book not by Buddhists, but by two guys who become friends. They are, just since I'm with this group, they are a couple. Really good guys, Rick Foster and Greg Hicks, called How We Choose to Be Happy. And it was about, they went for these, they are corporate facilitators and organizational people. They go to these big corporations, but they decided to explore happiness because they said the people that they work with were some of the most unhappy people. One of them, Rick, wanted to write a book. He said, "Let's write a book on on what we do." And Greg said, "Ooh, who wants to be around unhappy people?" And then Rick said, "Well, let's check out happy people." And they spent the next 3 years interviewing 300 plus people, identifiably, certifiably, extremely happy people. And they go to a town in rural Alabama, for instance, go to the diner and say, "Who's the happiest person in town?" And people at the diner would agree, "Oh, Shirley, she's the happy one." And they go to Shirley and ask, "Well, are you happy?" "Yeah, pretty happy. Can we ask somebody who might know you in a different light?" And they'd ask one of her co-workers or family members. "Yeah, Shirley's pretty happy." And then they'd have an in-depth interview. "Why are you so happy?" And after 3 years in researching all these people, they distilled 9 common denominators with that all these people had, consciously, unconsciously. And that's the book, these 9 secrets, these 9 choices of extremely happy people. And I read this, and it's a very fun, delicious book. It's the book that I use for the course. It's until mine is written. But they now give me credit, acknowledge me in the acknowledgement section, because there's been a whole lot of books that have been sold out of this, and they've come to Spirit Rock and etc., etc. And I said okay, all of these, or most of these, are Buddhist principles, just about all of them. And I want to do something with my Berkeley group. I have a group. If you're ever in Berkeley on Thursday nights, please come and sit with us. And the information is in the Spirit Rock newsletter, which I brought a number of copies out on the table. And I said, "Okay, folks, I want to explore happiness. And we're going to look at these principles, but I'm going to speak about them through a Dharma lens and through Buddha Dharma. And because they don't have exactly practices, and that's one of the wonderful things about Buddhism. There are practices for everything. So I said, we're going to do this for the next 3 months. And we got happier and happier and happier. You know? Not everyone. There was one person who just said, I can't stand any more of this happiness, and she had a hard time. But most everybody was just not only getting the ideas, but we were doing practices. And I said, this is far out. Okay. So I was writing at that point, this is a while ago, and in the writing I said, I'm going to do a course and just test out the theories with people who don't come to me for sittings and sit with me, who maybe aren't even Buddhist. And I started doing these Awakening Joy courses, which started out as 6 months. It's now 10 months, using not just the principles that they use. Actually, there are 10 principles. Some of them are in here and some of them aren't. But what I've seen as the Buddhist path of happiness. And the first course, there were 2 groups of 20, and then the next one, mysteriously, people told other people, and the next one had 100, and the next one had 200, and the next one had 500. And people can do it online. It's not just live. You couldn't have 500 people. And this one has like 700, and people are doing it in New Zealand and England and all over the place. Doing one theme a month, wholesome state, geared towards a wholesome state, and with supportive practices, meditation, and things like there's no pressure, no guilt, no failing, but singing every day really makes a difference. You won't find that in the Pali Canon, but I find that it really makes a difference. Using your body regularly, having a buddy to connect with, and a gratitude practice and things like that. And it works. If you've got the intention, it works. So now in the remaining time, I can't do 10 months in 10 minutes, but and you were going to ask some questions too. We want to leave some time for questions, but just want to I'll give you a little bit of a sense of it. Oh, and there's in the Spirit Rock newsletter, the article that I have an article in there on page 3 about this whole process, and there's the website that you can check out for the Joy course, and also a sign-up sheet if you want to get more information. The next one starts in January. Just to show about first inclining the mind towards wholesome. There's many different wholesome states. It starts with the intention to be happy. This is not one that comes naturally to many people. We might have the intention to be successful, or to be loved, or to have kinds of wonderful things happen to us that make us feel good. But to start out with the intention to be happy, that's the first choice that these people had. And you have to really get clear on that. Because if your intention is other than that, you won't necessarily arrive where you want to be. You might have an intention to be a very dedicated practitioner, but if happiness isn't in there, I mean, that's what, as the Dalai Lama said, the purpose of life is to be happy. Then you can get very serious in thinking, oh yes, I'm a Buddhist meditator, and this is good for me. I know it's good for me, because it doesn't feel so good, so it must be... To get in touch with the intention for great well-being is not only a gift to yourself, but to everybody that you meet. Because the more you're in touch with your own goodness, the more it shines through. So if you're depriving yourself, being a martyr or being some very serious practitioner or some idea of what you think a practitioner should look like, and not going for what your heart says real happiness is, you're going to be missing something. Now the key is to see where real happiness lies, as that Samvega quote is. Real happiness does not lie in getting the next goodie as quickly as you can. And we are subject to tremendous mind manipulation that we have to counteract these messages. As an example, this is an ad that just typifies what we're up against, called the Gold Shivers. Okay, beautiful woman on the front. It's a 2-page. Somebody gave me this a while ago. The gold shivers, that electric excitement, that thrilling warmth. Every new piece of gold jewelry ignites it once again. Nothing makes you feel as good as gold. That's the second part, you can see. What is the real substance of a new piece of gold jewelry? Emotion, pure and powerful. From the first small shiver of excitement when a shimmering necklace of gold beads catches a woman's eye, to the great shivers of delight when the coveted object actually becomes hers. Among life's pleasures, count this deeply felt euphoria as unique. The only way to get the gold shivers is by getting the gold. I just got shivers as I said. We get 3,000, the average American, it's in this book Culture Jam, the average American gets 3,000 messages like this every day through media, billboards, wherever, unless you're on retreat, saying, this is going to make you happy. So it really is, it's radical. The Buddha was radical to say, where does happiness really lie? In fact, you probably might know that what motivated him to teach was when he became enlightened, he saw that everybody wants to be happy, and most everybody is doing exactly the things that lead to more suffering. And that's what motivated him. We're looking in all the wrong places. So, I'll give you just a taste of one practice. I'll mention there's some of these practices and some of the themes, starting with intention. Mindfulness, noticing what is good around you, is a very important practice. As you incline the mind, it doesn't mean that you're pretending everything is hunky-dory. You don't want to live in, a dreamland, naive. But if you keep on looking for what's good, you'll find it. Just like if you, not only in things, but in people and in yourself. For instance, if somebody comes into a room and they see all your flaws, how do you feel? Flawed, don't you? Exposed, vulnerable, whatever. If you get a sense, and you can get a sense, that judgmental mind has loud radar out on it. Somebody else might come into a room. You might have just even taken some energy, and I'm going to change it in a moment. Somebody else comes into a room. They might know all your flaws, but they are seeing, and you can sense they are seeing how beautiful you are. How do you feel? Beautiful, don't you? Or Buddhaful, as one friend says. That's why it's so great being around the Dalai Lama, because he's seeing everybody as a Buddha, and you start feeling, hey, maybe he's right. Maybe I am a Buddha. So that's one thing, to incline the mind and look for what's good and what's uplifting. It allows you to hold all the sorrows. You I'm sure you know the phrase, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. If you're only looking for what's wrong, it's a very despairing view. But if you open up to all the joys, it allows you to hold and make the space for all the sorrows. Another one of these wholesome states is embracing our suffering as a path to joy, which is this list of suffering leading to faith, leading to that there's ways that you can hold your suffering that aren't in denial, but process it and lead to even deeper understanding and compassion. There is the joy that comes from letting go, and there's many, many aspects of that. Or the joy that comes, what the Buddha called the bliss of blamelessness, acting with integrity, and how good that feels. And so with each wholesome state, whether or not you would do this course, this is just something you might take with you. When you're feeling, say you act with real integrity and you take the high road, as he suggests, let yourself feel how good it feels. This is a good one. I'm doing it good now. And as you let it register in your awareness and in your body, there's a sense of well-being that is extraordinary, that overcomes ill will and hostility. There is the well-being, of course, that comes from loving kindness, metta practice, and service, and equanimity. There's well-being that comes from gratitude. Maybe just as I close, since I probably should wrap it up so you have a chance if there's any questions, to do a little bit of a gratitude exercise and just notice how it feels inside. So just close your eyes for a moment. And a gratitude practice is a very supportive one for I've been finding for this whole process. Just go inside and think of someone or something that you're grateful for in your life. You might have an image of them or of that situation. And let that picture be even bigger so you can connect with it. And you might just feel the blessing of that. Notice how it feels in your body. Perhaps silently say either to that person or to life, I'm so grateful for this, or I'm really grateful to you for this. I'm just grateful to you. Now let your awareness feel what it feels like to feel that gratitude. How good it feels. Or bring someone else to mind. You can let go of that. There's many, many blessings. Buddha has this beautiful discourse on blessings. Bring someone else or something else to mind that really opens you, appreciates the blessing in your life. Have an image. And once again, express silently your gratitude, either to that person or to life for that. Let yourself breathe that in and just relax into that sense of gratitude. Notice how it feels. Let your awareness really tune into the wholesomeness, the gladness of the wholesome. And very gently, as you come out, stay connected to that space, whatever you've touched. Could you feel something? So you can incline your mind anywhere. That's the whole point. You can train your mind and your heart to go anywhere. If you don't train it, it will go down the habitual pathways that are usually tinged with greed, hatred, and delusion. It's just the way it happens to often be. Or attachment, aversion, and ignorance. If you do train it to see where it really feels good, then the Buddha said the source of our happiness is getting in touch with states that come from non-greed or generosity or the ability to let go. Generosity being the most positive expression of that. Non-hatred or kindness, basically kindness and love. And non-delusion or clarity and wisdom. Those are the sources of happiness. So all of the training is to develop those. And the Buddha said, if it were not possible to free the mind of greed, hatred, and delusion, I would not tell you to do so. But it is possible. So this is what I've been exploring for the last few years, and it's just so exciting to know we can train ourselves not just to be equanimous on the cushion, but to more and more come from that place in our daily life. So I don't know how much time we have but we can tell me. Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about embracing suffering as a path to joy, because that's actually one of the things that attracts me to Buddhism a lot. And it seems that there's sort of a tendency in certain spiritual, quote-unquote, and New Age type circles to be focusing on joy and happiness and denying suffering as a way to do that. And so I just think it's really important to be aware that as you're encouraging joy, to be aware that, to not be in denial, because then that just brings up shadow.
It's essential.
What we see everywhere.
Oh, it'll come and get you. The first noble. I've been a Buddhist teacher for close to 30 years. First noble truth: there's suffering,
right.
And learning to understand and open to it and really acknowledge it, but hold it in a bigger space. Right. If you don't do it, you're in trouble.
But it's also to be careful to not go down this other path.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think the same thing goes with justice. That I hear people say, I don't watch the news, it depresses me. And I think there's also holding justice and doing the right thing and showing up at events and doing the justice. And it leads, first you get depressed, then it leads to joy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Actually, I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. There's a beautiful Howard Zinn quote, the optimism of uncertainty, where he says basically you can get so focused on what's wrong in the world that it gives you no energy to act. But if you get past what the media is feeding us to see all the acts of magnificence and character, we get inspired to act. It gives us energy to act and make a difference in the world, and we don't want to cut ourselves off and just say, oh yeah, I'm going to be happy here. No, there's a price to pay for that. And in fact, one of the main principles is the more you can express your practice in service and in expressing your caring and your compassion, that's where the joy really is. Completely agree.
I just follow that up there. In happiness surveys, people find involvement in nonprofits, humanitarian activities, second only to dancing in terms of fun.
Yeah. There's a wonderful book, Authentic Happiness, which is written by Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology, and the basic principle is that it's not what you get from life, it's what you give to life. And that your authentic happiness is in finding a meaning in what you're doing and really making a contribution. And there was a research experiment where people imagined, and they had electrodes hooked up to their brains, people imagined either winning a lottery and they could either keep the money and do all kinds of fun things with it, or give a big portion of it to charity and make a real difference. And they tracked the electro stimulation in the brain, and the charity was activated parts that were related to food and sex as far as the pleasures in the brain. That generosity were actually wired up to be benevolent, and that's where the real deeper happiness comes from. Yeah, Paul.
I was going to say, yesterday I went to an earthquake preparedness course at the local library, and the guy there, is very happy. He's telling us about everything. He was telling us, I proposed that our condo meet about earthquake preparedness in terms of helping each other. There's only 32 units in it. So he's there talking about earthquake preparedness, and the more you heard about the preparedness, the more you realized what you had to be prepared for. It was, that little test. But he says, it's all about love. And I was just so struck, by, this is just an ordinary guy. He says, it's all about love. You got to see how we can help each other when this thing hits, And he was definitely tripping on money. He had definitely found the way.
That's a good motivator. So maybe one last one.
Yeah, I had a situation last week. The details aren't too important, but I was feeling great. I'd just done a run. I said good morning to someone in my gym, and he was so nasty to me. It was really striking. It was basically, good morning, go to hell. It was kind of the energy. And I wrote about it, I meditated about it, and one of the thoughts I had was of how the spirit of a child is killed in 100 little encounters like this. I lived in Manhattan for many years, and there were 100 encounters like that frequently, and being in an elevator with people, and you just didn't say good morning, and I've been trying to think about that also as a Buddhist, and wonder if you have a comment.
About
what happens when you bring your loving energy to someone and it's so rejected in a very mean way.
Right. Well, unfortunately, what can happen easily is you stop bringing your love out because it's scary. It can't. If that happens, that's really, which it can happen. It happens so often, so easily. It's really a shame. And for me, the way I hold it is, I'm just dealing with that person when I'm with them. They have to live inside their head all the time. What a painful head that must be, because they're getting that energy coming back to them, and so it really, I protect myself and send them compassion from a distance. As the Dalai Lama says, when you've done everything you can do and people are still nasty, that's time to find the nearest exit. And so what you don't want to do, and this is where I think the training comes in, as you more and more deeply connect with your own goodness, you become a beacon that overrides that energy. And what you don't want to do is stop loving because of those people out there. If you're a child, what I've seen is if there's any place that little child has received love from, if there's any, all it takes is one being who's been kind in the middle of all of the nastiness, that seed can be watered. And I've worked with a lot of people who've carried around the story, nobody loved me, or I'm damaged because, and this has happened many times, and when I hear somebody say, nobody loved me when I was a kid, and I'll say, was there anyone? And after a while somebody reflects, and often there's, well, yeah, my grandmother really did love me. And then we tune into that. As soon as they can change that story that I've never been loved, and feel that love. It's like this little rivulet of life that you can not only access your own love, but then you can be there for people who went through that same painful development. And that's what the Dharma is about. You go through your own pain as a bodhisattva training for others, so you can be there for others who will be going through that same suffering. Should probably stop. Nice to be here with you.
Now it's time for announcements. I guess we have a host today. Would you like to start, Mr. Host?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's see. There's some. You can help yourself to tea, and just make sure you rinse off. There's some hot water on the right, and just make sure you rinse off your cup if you're done. With some simple water. And there will be a Dharma bowl. This is just a donation. It is $5 to $8 if you care to give, or if not, that's of course fine. Many of us meet at 12:30 to head out for lunch, so you're welcome to do that. And I think that's. Oh, I think there's a sign-up sheet, is there? Or
yeah, there's a pink sign-up sheet out by the Dharma bowl. I should mention that there are 2 Dharma bowls. We have our Dharma bowl over here on the side by the tea urn, and then there's another Dharma bowl out by the desk, which is for the center that we are renting from. So you're welcome to give to them too if you want, but give to, make sure you're aware of who you're giving to when you put the money in the bowl. And we could use some more sign-up sheets. Todd,
I just brought a huge packet.
Okay, so great, because I couldn't find any more, so there's more back there now. So you can sign up for email or snail mail or both. We do mail out our newsletter, but we can also send it to you electronically, so whatever you prefer. And I think there are some directories. We have a directory of the GBF membership. The members who wanted to be included in the directory is out there as well. And there are potluck flyers. Kay is not here today, is he?
He is not here. He's asked me to announce the Thanksgiving dinner at his home in Oakland. If you're interested in finding out more information about that, talk to me afterwards. But Thanksgiving, many of us will be gathering in his home. I think we're going to do potluck type meal this year. So there may be flyers out there, but if you're interested, just talk to me.
I just want to mention, besides the Spirit Rock newsletter and the list for the information, as far as the course goes, there is a suggested donation, but there's whatever anybody wants to give. It's done on that basis as well. So. And I'm going to be here for this half hour as well.
George,
yes, a reminder that our talks are available on the internet at the GBF website, gaybuddhist.org. Also, in an ongoing effort to transfer the cassette archive of some 70 talks, 3 editions, 2 talks by David Rico, and also the 1996 recording of the GBF Relationships Forum, including talks by Tom Moon and Mark Merriman.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, so we usually close by standing in a circle and reading a dedication of merit. Would you like to do that? Sure.
Just feeling in your own heart a sense of well-being. Breathe in benevolence from life around you, radiating it out. May we all grow in happiness and peace. May we feel the love that's inside and share it well. May we see clearly, wake up to our true nature. And then sending this energy out, may all beings in all directions find happiness. May all know real peace inside. May all share their love well. And may they all awaken to their true nature. And may our coming together have a rippling effect and be of benefit to all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.